30.
Bill paid, ain't it?
20 seconds. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello, welcome to the Stephen Smith Show. Good to be before you on this Tuesday night. Good to be able to be seen also. God bless all that are watching live and all that are watching via social media. God bless you on today. So many things happening so quickly in our world. So many things are happening at one time. I meet so many of you in the marketplace, and thank you all for telling me that you're watching me. You never quite know. I guess sometimes by response you would think that there would be contact or different things, but thank you for watching me, the people that I've met. On this past Sunday, a good buddy of mine, a guy who has shined my shoes for years upon years. I guess he was probably 15. You know, and he's probably almost 40, so he's been shining my shoes for about 25 years. His name is Vincent Guy. And Vincent was the youth day speaker for his church at Greater White Stone. While I don't remember any time in recent history that I've been at Greater White Stone in the daytime, other than a funeral, I did go there. Yeah, I'm a South Memphis guy, so I know plenty of folks that went to Greater White Stone. And Vincent Guy, he owns Magic Hands Shoe Shine Parlor. Vincent was absolutely terrific. What Vince did while he was on is that he didn't use the Hebrew, he didn't use Greek, he didn't try to have 5 points in a poem. He just simply told his story. And, you know, different things that had happened to him and different experiences that he had been through. And it went over well with the crowd, not just with the young people, it went over with the adults because he was sharing his story. His pastor is a guy named Roger Brown. And Roger Brown said something significant that I took in, because he said that nobody can beat you telling your story. And that's what I want to use as a subject tonight. Nobody can beat you telling your story. I know all of us think that we have to tell, we long to be the person that has these Herculean and superhuman exploits done on a daily basis. The person who's climbed the highest mountain, the person who has ran the fastest mile. But if you look back over your life, and if you would really, truly be honest, you would have to say that God's been good to you. Many of you, like me, were sometimes riding in a car that you shouldn't have been riding in, and yet God kept you. Many of us have gone, I have seen God show up as the saying says, as a lawyer in the courtroom and a doctor in the sick room. So folks, what I want to tell you on today, when I said that nobody can beat you telling your story, that some of us have lived a life where we've seen more God's hand, if we reflect and think pensively, preach Steve, I'm getting ready to, pensively about how good God has truly been to us. How many times God has been that way, out of no way. How many times that God has made a way out of no way. And how many times that maybe things didn't even work out for us. But I want to talk tonight about that word that Pastor Roger Brown said. He didn't hoop it, he didn't tune it. He said this simple thing. He said that nobody can beat you telling your story. So I'm coming here tonight to let you know that your story is worth telling. If you look back over your story, there's some of us that have experiences that Steven Spielberg has yet to think of. There's some of us that have had life happen to us in ways that Tyler Perry never thought of. If somebody would literally win an Academy Award as Best Actor under harsh circumstances, if folks just knew half of what you're going through. The Bible says that they that overcame in the last days are they that who overcame by the blood of the Lamb that's already shed and by the word of their testimony. Child of God, I'm speaking to you on tonight and letting you know that nobody can tell your story better than you. I know we feel like we're all anomalies and that ain't nobody knows the trouble I've seen, but that's in direct contradiction with the scriptures. Paul wrote, he said, there have no temptation taken you, but such that is common to man. What you've been through, somebody else has been through. And this is the caveat I want to put on that. The thing that you're going through right now, either somebody else has been through it, somebody else is in that same situation right now, or they're well on their way to going through the same thing. That's why it's so important to share our stories. It's so important to share our testimonies. It's so important to tell about the goodness of God. Let me try one from my past. I'm sitting down and I'm dealing with doing one of me and my wife's many times that we had to fight against adversity. But I'm sitting down and I'm listening to this little snooty lady here at the MLG&W. In other words, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. So I'm sitting there talking to her because for a good season I had a good hookup there. I had a friend there and I could just call and arrangements were made. I didn't have to worry about nothing. And then they once gave me a card as a preacher that if any time I came in the building with this card, I would instantly be able to go to the front of the line. And I just didn't have the internal makeup to skip in front of women and old people and children and handicapped. I just didn't do that. That wasn't my thing. But this lady was talking to me, and we're here making arrangements, and I'm there making arrangements, and this is what she says to me. Well, sir, Mr. Smith, I can't agree to those arrangements. And I'm looking here in about 7 or 8, we're going to need this amount of money, and if you pay this amount of money today, we'll cut your lights back on. And I said, cut my lights back on? Oh, she said, oh, yes, Mr. Smith, you don't have to be embarrassed. Your lights have been off for 10 days. I went in right there because I knew I had just left the house where every light in the house was on. So, folks, all of us got a story where God has been so good and God has been so merciful and God had showed up. My friend Vince on the other day, he didn't use any Hebrew, he didn't use any Greek, he didn't use anything overtly impressive. He just simply told his story. And folks, if you simply tell your story, the experiences that God has trusted you with is enough for you to know, for you to share with somebody else, because somebody else is fighting the same fight that you're fighting. Somebody is climbing and they're wondering, well, is anybody listening? Is this journey going to be fruitful? And folks, when somebody finds out that they're not some anomaly, some 1 in a million person that somebody else is going through the thing that I'm going through, and somebody else has been through what I'm going through, and God saved them. And I don't know about this Bible thing they may say, but my big mama did say that there is no secret what God can do, what he's done for others. They'll start believing that he'll do the same thing for them. And if they're scriptural people, because I know some of you all want me to be all Bible, the book of James talks about God being the Father of lights, in whom there is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Child of God, nobody can tell your story better than you. Yeah, you remember when Junebug left you, because Junebug had them bow legs and you fell for them bow legs. And Junebug left you with them 3-4 kids for a season and didn't send any support. And nobody knows how you made it, but God sustained. God kept you. God kept anything. He kept you from open shame. He kept you from being shamed. He kept you from being put out on the street. Folks, many times you don't know that God's a healer until you've been sick. When God shows up after the doctor has shook his head. I remember that I was about 9-10 years old. My stepmom went with me, and we took my mom, who was hemorrhaging at that particular time. And gosh, that's 40-some years ago. And he says, son, if your mama goes up, she probably won't be coming down. And my mom probably has outlived that doctor. Child of God, I'm preaching to you on tonight, because all of us got a story that's worth telling. And I'm telling you, tell your story. Stop being sitting on your story. God's trusted you with experiences. God trusted you with so many victorious stories. You're feeling like some of us are walking Bibles. We walk the Bible out. We're talking about what everybody in the biblical did in their exploits, and God showing up for you in a biblical way on a daily basis. His favor, his grace has kept you when everybody counted you out. When you knew that you didn't study no reading, and you didn't study no writing. I know what I said. No, I'm saying the negative. And you didn't study no arithmetic, but God has favored you and given you job after job, and God has given you open door after open door, and God has caused his favor to rain upon you. Folks, you got to tell your story. You better tell it, and not only tell it wherever you go. Nobody can outtell you telling your own story. Folks, it's your story. God has trusted you with a unique set of experiences, a unique set of victories, a unique set of things that people thought would take you out, and God has kept you day after day, way after way, moment after moment, minute after minute, month after month, and year after year. Child of God, nobody can beat you telling your own story. I know that we all want to talk about these victorious stories. We only want to talk like we're always up and never down. But I can tell you that I learned more from some of the tough times that I've been through in life. I learned that God heals, and I didn't learn that on the top of the mountain. I learned that God delivers, and I didn't learn that on the top of the mountain. I learned that God sets free, and I didn't learn that on the top of the mountain. And I'm telling you that nobody can beat you telling your story. Child of God, tell them about when the money was funny and the change was strange and God made a way. Tell them when they said that my wife had an incredible testimony once, that she was in a unit that they told her in this particular day, and I can't call the company, I can't say no more, but nobody was kept in her whole group. And they said, if you're off that day, we're going to still call you. And they called her and they told her to log in and disable all of these emails. And she was crying, boo-hooing, and sorry about all her co-workers in a group that she had lost. But I told her, you got to remember that God kept you. And folks, I'm speaking that word to you on tonight. You remember when you were supposed to be the first one fired because you were the last one hired, and God managed to put his hedge of protection around you in the marketplace. That God kept you despite every generational curse that has reigned in your family, that God kept you even though you have overcome every negative prophecy that they have thrown your way. Child of God, nobody can beat you telling your story. What I'm coming tonight is that I think so many of us want to be only up and never down. We're so concerned about our outer veneer and our perception in the marketplace, our brands. And I'm telling you right now that if you've been ashamed, that I'm telling you on today that if God is telling me to tell you to pull the cover off and be proud of what God has brought you through. Child of God, I'm speaking to you that nobody can outbeat you telling your story. I'm telling you that God's shown up enough in the retinue, in the back door of your life, that if he never did anything else, God has been so good to you. I was talking the other day because it was really hot, and I was talking and I said, man, if you riding without no air, boy, you're going through a bad little season right now. And I said it so frivolously, and then the Lord took me back. He had a little battle with me, and he picked me up and almost took me up. And he said, Steve, do you remember? That's the bad thing about the enemy. When God delivers the enemy, once we're 2 paychecks over broke, that the enemy causes us to forget how good God was to us in our land of affliction. I remember one time that Aaron rock hit this particular car that I owned one time, and that rock hit somewhere in the back and damaged things, and where it hit, it cost me my air conditioner. And then at that season, we didn't have the little money for the air conditioner. Now I know I push a button now and all types of air come on, but we forgot that I went a whole year almost with no air in the car. So you got to play like you're dancing to the music and play like you're clapping to the music. But folks, God has been so good to us that sometimes we forget just how good he's been. Child of God, I'm speaking to you in SVP land. I know you got the Mercedes, and I know you have a different diction, but I'm reminding you to go back in those memory banks and think about just how good God has been through you. How you rode in the car where everybody else ended up in a bad thing, and God gave you the wisdom and the foresight to get out before it all popped off. How you dealt with that fool. You dated that fool who's on the beat, folks, and you got out of there just in the nick of time. And so much public perception is given right now to how we look, how we're perceived in the marketplace. But boy, I don't look like what I've been through. And I don't think I'm by myself, SVP land and social media land. I think that so many of us we don't look like half of what we've been through. That God has laid it on the line and delivered us time after time, day after day, way after way. I'm speaking that word to you tonight because your story is worth telling. Your story is a great bestseller. Your story is sometimes better than anything that Shakespeare could have thought of, anything that Edgar Allan Poe would have brought out, anything that any type of great author would have thought of, because God has trusted you with a unique story, and he's delivered you time after time and day after day and way after way. Folks, I got testimonies that would make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I've given you just a couple out of my life. I hope I have a hall pass when I go home for sharing some of our experiences, but God has been too good to us. I told my wife and I that we've had folks set traps and set so many things over time, that we've been under so many different attacks at different junctions, and we live time and again to see ourselves feeling sorry for the person that put us in the pickle. That God turns the tables, and then we got to pray for the person that despitefully used us, that meant us no good, that tried to set traps for us. But God is a deliverer day after day, way after way. I'm speaking that to you on tonight, that God has done enough in the back door of your life. I know it's a little foggy back in the memory banks, because when we get about 2 checks over our paychecks in the bank, we start to have blindness. We forget. We get amnesia about our troubles, trials, and afflictions that God has brought us through. But if you really sit down and you really think about just how good God has been, is my number up there? Somebody out there may want to tell their story that God has been delivered, that God can come in, that no matter what extremity in you that you're in, it's man's extremity, it's said, it's God's possibility. Time and again, when men counted me out, God threw me back into play. And I'm telling you on today that nobody can tell your story, that God's already worked hard enough in your past, that he's ordered your steps, that God has been a hedge of protection. 1,000 have fallen at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, and God's not allowed any danger to come nigh your door, that no weapon that has ever been formed against you has truly prospered. It was formed, but it didn't prosper, and every tongue that rose up against you in judgment thou shalt condemn. Child of God, I'm trusting you tonight. I'm trusting you with a bestseller, and the bestseller that I'm sending your way is your own story. God has been good. I've been counted out 99 plus 1. I've been counted out time and again, and God shows up as a doctor in the sick room. Preach, Steve. I am. And he's shown up as the lawyer in the courtroom. That he showed up as my advocate in the workplace where folks hate my guts. That he was my shield of protection when the thief looming in the street, the carjacker, couldn't take me out. That God sent his angels to protect me. Folks, he has trusted us, so many of us, with so many things that if you look back over your life and God never did another thing for you, he's done enough that you couldn't tell it all. Child of God, my brother and sister, my SVP friend and my SVP kin, my social media friend and my social media kin, I'm telling you on tonight that God has done something. He's still in the blessing business. He's still in the open door business. He's still in the healing business. They thought that you would be dead and gone, and God still heals. He still delivers. He still opens doors. He still makes ways. He's still been a helper, a bulwark. That he's your bridge over troubled waters. He's your first and last. Folks, look, I'm speaking that to you on tonight, that you don't have to come to you with any Hebrew or any Greek. You know when God has done the miraculous in your life, that you didn't see a way out, but God made a way anyway. You were used to walking by sight, and then all for a good season you didn't have no sight because you couldn't see a way, and you had to trust God and learn to walk by faith. Walking by faith, you found out that God will do what you thought no other man can do, what no other power can do. Preach, Steve. I did tonight. I'm preaching that to you on tonight. I'm giving that to you via the airways, via social media on tonight. I'm letting you know that nobody can beat you telling your story. And folks, you may not want to buy my story. You may not think my story is a bestseller, but God has given me some experiences and some things he brought me through, and some things, you learn more about God through your various trials that you go through. I would never have known that God was a healer if I had never been sick. I would never have known that God's a way maker if I had never needed a way made. Child of God, I'm speaking that to you on tonight because you were getting ready to have that little pity party on tonight. God himself doesn't attend your pity party, but he will attend your praise party. So that's what we're doing on tonight. The scriptures declare that he inhabits. That word inhabits in the original language means that he literally pitches a tent, that he inhabits the praises of his people. Child of God, they counted me out 1,000,001 times, and here I am again. Booyah, that what God has been good. He's kept me time after time. And it's not because I'm so great. It's because I decided to trust him. And folks, that same God that I trusted, and God had came through. He's not a respecter of persons, but he is a respecter of principles. If you do what people in the Bible did, you will get what people in the Bible got. Child of God, I'm speaking this rhema word to you on tonight. I'm speaking this, as the old holiness folks used to say, to your Osha, deep down in here. And I'm speaking that word to you, and I'm telling you, nobody can beat you telling your story. I preached tonight. Preach, Steve. I did. Be blessed. I'll see you next week. Bless you.